Thank you. It's wonderful to meet the family at Cambridge, and I'm sure the rest of them from all over the world who are joining us today. Uh, so thank you very much for inviting me to share my thoughts, and what a day it is to share my thoughts on uh, some of my favorite Murli points. I think these are today's Murli has a lot of I should say memories with it, and I thought I'll share some of those what struck me today when I read the Murli. So taking back, I'll share a short story of the way how I came into Gyan, how our family came into took this knowledge. So my sister is uh, was born mentally challenged. She's a couple of years older than me, and then born mentally challenged. So my mother and father would go to every person possible to see if somebody could get my sister back like everybody else. She would not speak. She was not very responsive, and she was just not like a normal child. And they would go to quacks, they would go to doctors, they would go to everybody. They would meet on the street and see if anybody could get her to be better. And this was something that was very deep. All day, they always used to think about how could she become better. And it so happened that one day they were told by the neighbors that, for some mental peace, why don't you go to this meditation center and see how they could teach you a meditation course, and you will not worry about this too much, so you can just live in peace. And so my mother and father went to this center, and the first day that they went there was this old mother in the center, and she was fumbling around and she wasn't able to walk very well. And she spilled cooking oil on the floor like 5 minutes before the class. And the entire class was all messed up. It was not very clean. And the sister in charge, she was extremely, very, very stable, very quiet, very soft. And she very patiently just let this mother sit at one place and then cleaned up this entire thing without saying a word. Nothing said, no anger, no frustration. She was so pleasant. And looking at this, my dad only made one remark. He said, I don't know if we are going to get a huge benefit of going here, but all I want to do in my life is to become like this sister. She seems to be living the life of a yogi, and this is all that I think I should look for. I'm not looking for some great knowledge. I'm not looking for enlightenment. I'm not looking for something else. I'm just looking for me to become like her. And looking back, this ability to spot that virtue is what made us stick to the BKs. And being able to look at that situation, the circumstance, and see what is positive there, see what is something that I could actually take as a virtue in life. And looking back, I have seen my mother do this all the time, with a daughter like that. This is like two people she has to take care of all these years. And I can imagine the amount of work that is needed, the amount of patience that is needed. And whenever I ask her, saying, don't you feel tired? Don't you feel frustrated? She says, "Not this daughter is the one who has actually taught me so much. She has taught me the virtue of patience. She has taught me to look at life in a positive way, to redefine what purity means. Like, my sister is one of the most purest souls there is. There is no anger. There is absolutely no emotion that's negative. And looking at her, we're all sort of inspired. And looking at my mother, I am definitely inspired in the amount of positive virtues that I am able to take from her. Because in spite of all these challenges, she has done a phenomenal amount of service and been able to take so many positives. So this ability to spot virtues and pick up these good qualities and not see anything negative, I think I'm blessed to have this within my immediate family, and I've had so many opportunities. And I think this is something that all of us may have in some form or the other, right? So if I look at any of us may have somebody inspiring like that around us, who is able to teach us something with their behavior, something with us, their ability to pick themselves up in challenging situations and something that's so negative and still find something positive and turn around, inspire so many people. So I think that is one thing that immediately I was reminded of today when we were talking about not seeing negativity, not seeing the positive and picking up, imbibing these. The other thing also is the entire journey of the soul. For me, if I look back at it, I'm probably on this reverse journey, going back from the confluence age, going back and becoming worthy. And today, Baba talked about being Sato Pradhan, being the most elevated. I'm in this reverse journey, and that I think throughout the day, Baba said there is a lot of going up and down, and I feel that there is this up and down not just in the entire cycle, but throughout the day. Sometimes I resonate with souls who are having something negative, and I'm able to even spot it. I think that's a very good question. I'm able to even think, I'm able to see that negativity, and I feel that's something I resonate with at that moment, saying, "Oh, that behavior makes me angry, that behavior makes me frustrated or feel bad about it," and I feel at that moment. And then there are other moments when I feel like absolute elevated. I'm just flying past, gliding past all these things, and I don't observe anything that's wrong. So this up and down that's happening throughout the day also makes me want to become more stable, want to become more uniform. Like I want to maintain the stage, but then how do I do it? And then today's Murli, Baba's solution to this seems to be about becoming soul conscious, saying, if you become soul conscious, then you will see everybody as your brother, and therefore there is no nothing negative that you would spot. There is no negativity that you would pick. Don't pick weaknesses from anyone. So I was wondering what exactly helps me become soul conscious, and from today's Murli, if there are anything that I could take. And one of the things that I feel personally that has helped me is remembering what is the attainment that I have received. What have I actually attained by being a Brahmin, by being a student of Brahma Kumaris? What is it I attainment? I believe the biggest attainment is clarity, is knowledge. I'm able to actually look at the same situation and I'm able to perceive it differently. I'm able to take in things that are completely filled with knowledge and filled with value. And then there are so many other attainments in terms of the family that I have received, the kind of opportunities to serve, the ability to take this knowledge and apply it to my work, to my study, whatever I do. I see there are so many attainments that I have been blessed with. And every time throughout the day, if I surround myself with the attainments that I have, even if it is a physical attainment, if I surround myself with all the attainments that I have, I'm more likely to reduce waste, which is another thing that I think Baba talked about today. And then I'm able to constantly remind myself, saying, by the way, why did I get this attainment? How did I achieve this? And then I'm again pointed back to Baba. And the more times I'm able to make those connections to Baba, the more likely that I will remain stable, the more likely I'll remain soul conscious. At some point, I'll probably reduce this dependency on physically surrounding myself with attainments and probably mentally able to. But if I'm not in that position, I think a good yukti, a good tact would be to have things around me that remind me of all the attainments that I have, all the spiritual attainments, not material attainments, spiritual attainments that I have. The second thing that I've found to be very useful is the consciousness of time. So a thought experiment would be, what if there were 40,000 years left in the confluence age? So I would not have the sense of urgency or sense of purpose to go about transforming myself. I just say, okay, I'll do this in the next birth, or probably the birth after that. I'll just enjoy my life now. So I think the sense of purpose comes from a deep understanding of how important time is. And also, if I look at it myself, I think I look at negativity, and looking at this negativity is what occurs by default, and it is laziness. I am lazy enough to look behind, look and understand intent, attribute positive intent, positive vibrations to it. And because I just want to gloss over quickly, I just immediately, the first thing that comes to my mind may be something that's negative, because that's what is probably apparent on the surface. I'm not spending enough time to go deeper and understand what is the positive, what else is there behind this person's intent, what is that person's original idea or so. So that aspect of time, both with respect to how much time do I have left and how much time am I actually able to understand the soul, what am I able to do. And the third aspect is about conducting experiments. Something that I like personally, maybe just by my virtue of my education, is looking at what experiments can I do today. For example, today's thought experiment could be about the river and say, how does the river Brahmaputra, Baba talked about the river, and one of my favorite powers also is about water. So I think, what can I, if I visualize myself as the river Brahmaputra today, how do I relate to waste? What all is thrown into me in Indian rivers? It's just mind-boggling. The rivers are, so much is put into those rivers, so much negativity and waste is put into it. But the river seems to flow and impact so many people's lives positively, change the places where it flows. So how do I become this river that is constantly flowing, and I'm able to let go of that waste and maintain whatever my path is to going towards the ocean. So that's a thought experiment in terms of saying, if I face a situation today, if I meet someone today, how could I be the river? So these are some of the things that I feel constantly remind me to become soul consciousness, because soul consciousness, at the end of the day, Baba said, is the way you get out of this habit of looking at weakness. Then I remember I am a soul. These are Baba's children at the end of the day, and therefore there is nothing negative. And then the biggest magnet of all, the one who has all the virtues, is God, and therefore I'm constantly reminded of from whom I need to take these virtues. So those are my thoughts uh, about the Murli and what I think about picking up these virtues. It definitely reminded me about these early days of my life, of um, how picking up virtues and what I could learn from my own immediate family, what I could learn from my spiritual family, and all of these things. People here around me have been blessed, are filled with virtues. I've been so fortunate to be surrounded with people who have so many things positive that I can constantly dip into and experience. And then my own personal effort for the day of these three things of experimenting with this aspect of water. How could I be the river for today? Understanding the importance of time, giving more time so that I look at not just the negatives that may be readily apparent, but also look at intentions and positives. And also thinking about the whole attainments that I have received. Can I surround myself with all the attainments that I have? So all of these were the thoughts that were in my mind as I listened to the Murli today and reflected on it. Now, coming to the question that Brother Prashant asked about, what if a thief were to come to your house? And so I was looking at this thief coming to steal my happiness, for example, and how would I, if it's not just a physical thief, but I'm sure there are like at least 10 to 15 times I have a robbery incident in my life every day when somebody is coming to steal happiness, and so I'm just trying to think of um, the role of yukti here, the role of happiness. So I remember one of Baba's Murli where he said, if there is anything that you're doing that is taking you away from happiness, then it is not Srimad. So there is an opportunity here to look at this robber and be very benevolent and think and give drishti and say very nice things about. But then eventually I am likely to lose something. I'm likely to lose a life or lose something of value. So I think that there needs to be an application of yukti here, and so that I could get out of the situation probably alive, safe, and with minimal damage. And that balance, I think, is where I don't know if I can prepare for a situation like that, but being soul conscious, I think, will make sure that I act in the most responsible, most positive way as possible at that moment. So the short answer is that I cannot just be using one aspect of knowledge when a thief or when a robber comes in and just become try to look at the virtue of that person or try to be benevolent or I'll have to take action in such a way that preserves who I am and gives me an opportunity to continue to do effort and so on. So knowledge is more complete. I cannot just apply today's one point and just think of taking virtues from that robber. Maybe I could do that in hindsight, if I reflect on the incident later. But at that moment, I think it will be important for me to respond in a way to preserve myself and the happiness. So those are some of my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, brother. So we invite the class to ask questions or comment at this point. I was wondering how, in your work, you said that there are often challenging problems, malevolence in the public services, and just wondered how you apply Gyan to your work.
Yeah, so one of the things that I realized after about 15 years of working in the consulting space, in the technology space, was for me, it was very easy to be successful. I could make proposals, I could give ideas, I could innovate for customers and so on. And I felt it was very easy to be successful. But then working in the public services space, working in development sector, I found that it was much more difficult to define what success meant. Often we would go with some brilliant ideas and say, and we were working on very complex problems, like, for example, how do you reduce maternal mortality, deaths, and then maternal infant mortality? How do we reduce deaths due to tuberculosis? And these were very big challenges. And we were a group of young people who want to go on the field and actually innovate. And failure was the default. Success was not the default. You would go in the morning with ideas and then you would immediately face failure by afternoon. And how do you actually manage yourself, manage failure so that you actually keep yourself motivated to go back the next day? These are common challenges that we face with every day. So one of the ways in which I myself applied and also was able to apply this at work is we created what we called a reflection times. And in the evening, we would do a reflection time collectively at work. So we would reflect on everything that happened during the day and what we observed, what happened. And we would also have a bowl of virtues. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, it reminds me of today's Murli. We would have a bowl of virtues and each one of us would pick one virtue and see what would be different if we would apply virtue. And there were 15, 20 of us, and each of them would share saying, I could apply this virtue to a particular situation. I was standing in front of this 17-year-old person who was given 3 months to live. And I froze, I couldn't act, I couldn't respond. And I could have done this, I could do this next time when I'm in a similar situation. And so we did, and then many of them came later to Mount Abu and also shared their experiences. So I think as students who possess this kind of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, we are in an excellent position to actually solve social challenges this way, or even guide those who are solving social challenges, because very little is being taught about those problem solvers on the ground who need a lot of spiritual support, who need a lot of mental support. They are solving problems, but we have a role to probably support them. So that's my interpretation of how spiritual social workers could contribute to addressing these challenges.
Yes, thank you. So does anybody have a question this morning for brother, or a comment? Not seeing any hands raised at the moment. Ganesh.
Om Shanti, brother. Thank you for your talk.
Shanti.
It was lovely to hear your spiritual endeavors, actually. My question is like a river flows. River flow comes into obstacles. There is on the path there is obstruction, but still the river flows. So, what is your main virtue or power that keeps you going in this spiritual path? By the way, I'm driving. I'm just going to put the phone down a little bit. Thank you.
From the river itself, you mean? Your question is, what do you learn from the river itself?
No, what is the spiritual practice you have kept doing continuously to be successful?
I think that my effort has mostly been spent on application of knowledge and creating experiments for myself. So that is something that I really enjoy. So I would take at least 2 or 3 points from the Murli and try to create an experiment that's going to test me, that I can put to practice. Like this river is a good thing. So today I know what my schedule looks like, what kind of meetings I have to attend. And so I could pick up this point and create an experiment out of it and say, by the way, I will watch out for how the river behaves today. It has to go through these valleys and troughs. It has to have these obstacles. I will be meeting these kind of people. So let me see how the river behaves. So overall, I think my thing that I've been doing consistently, I would say, is has been about creating experiments for myself and testing how much of what I hear every day I'm able to actually put into practice. I'm very passionate about application side of Gyan. I spend a lot of my time thinking about how could I apply this, how could I put it into different situations and so on. So that's something consistent. Another practice that I've probably not been very consistent but has helped me immensely is I actually keep track of, for example, how many different tasks I do every day. I observe that everything from, say, having my breakfast, getting ready for work, or going somewhere out, finishing the Murli, having a walk. So I have about 90 to 120 tasks every day. At each end of each task, I have spent 30 to 60 seconds reflecting on the previous task and spending and giving sort of good wishes for the next task. And I did this for many years, and it has been one of my my best experiences. And if I was to take a ride in an auto rickshaw, for example, I know that I'll be getting off in like 30 seconds. I would spend the last 30 seconds of the ride in silence and reflect, and then what I'm going to do next. And that investment of silence, even for those few seconds, helped me immensely in several situations. So it's a very simple practice. I don't have to carve out additional time for myself. I can do this in a very busy schedule. So that's something that's a practice. I've not been as consistent as it, but I did this for many years and I've found a lot of good benefits.
Thank you. Very lovely. Thank you.
I'm reminded that Einstein used to do thought experiments, and how it's clearly a very good way of learning and teaching ourselves and finding our own realizations.
Right. Very good. I believe that I am a bit selfish in that way, that I'm focused a lot on my own learning. And I feel that everybody else is teaching me so much. So I have a lot of inspiration around me. So I'm always picking up notes from everyone else. But I would like to hear anybody else's thoughts on the robber if they come home. If anybody had anything to add to it, I'd like to see a different approach.
Yeah. Hi, Bhanu bhai. You can see me, or?
Yes, I can see. Yes.
Yeah. Given your background and exposure to the practical situations of the world, and at present in India, but you are exposed to, you've been to Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard. What you feel is the next nice project we can think of for the global level? What you feel there is a need at the present time? Using Gyan, coming from us.
Yeah. So if we were to look at one of the things that I shared earlier, I feel there is they say that there are three types of people in the world. There are those who are observers, those who whine, and those who are problem solvers. So those who make a lot of noise, those who say something is not right with the world, and those who are just silent observers, and those who actually are solving the problems. I believe below these three are the spiritual support layer. I think this is our role of supporting those who are solving problems, whether it is politically solving problems, or if it is entrepreneurship, or if it is researchers. There are people from all walks of life who are trying to solve some of these problems. I think we could play a great role in collaborating with these problem-solving community and providing the spiritual layer, the mental well-being layer for the problem solvers. Because in my view, in the last 6-7 years of being involved in this sector, I don't see many of them supporting the problem solvers. The problem solvers are doing great work. They have a global reach, they have a local interest, but who is supporting them? How do we sustain them? How do we strengthen them? I think that's a big role for us to play. And why doing that? I think once the problem is solved or whatever they want to achieve, they will remember who actually contributed to strengthening them. And we have a big role to play in adding that support to them. Now, what we could do, I think from a research community, there is a lot that's happening, especially we are blessed to be in surroundings like Oxford and Cambridge. There is a deep interest in blending our surroundings and the quality of our surroundings, the quality of thoughts, and various kinds of impact it's having, whether it is on research outcomes, academic outcomes, whether it is on positive psychology and behavior, and so many other things. I think these are areas where we could potentially create a collaboration. We should use these researchers and the kind of brand and the visibility that they have as vehicles for us to be able to jointly do some work. Just recently, like one of my department professors was involved in the research of how simple silent walks completely improved performance. And this was done at Oxford, right at Oxford. And they used some place where they could take walks in the morning, and they studied students, they studied professors, they studied common folk in Oxford. So is this something that we could do? Because that could have a large implication. I think those are the places where we could address, as our core competency is on the spiritual dimension of supporting all of these, the problem solvers as such. There is a lot of work happening on sustainability and equality, on climate. All of these are big problems. We could probably provide the spiritual layer behind it. That's at the global scale that could create impact.
Thank you. Yeah, very useful.
We have a couple more minutes if anybody else has a question or a comment.
Can I ask, Om Shanti, and very nice to meet and hear. I was very inspired by some of the yuktis of creating a break in between tasks in the mind and silence. So definitely we'll play with it and the experiments. Just on the last question, do you feel that by the support of the ones who are problem solvers will mean that there will be like a larger awareness of Brahmakumaris, so come the time when things are collapsing because the things aren't going to be able to be solved? It feels like in a way the end of the drama will be Rose would say chaos, but unceremoniously collapsing. But are you sort of thinking that this will at least give the message out of there is an answer here, so at some point they will be ready to step up to the real solving of the problem, which is consciousness and coming beyond the drama? Is that how you're seeing it in this sense?
Right. So at two levels. One is, if I were to look at me serving the entire tree, not everybody is going to recognize God or recognize their role in the drama and so on, but they're definitely going to experience peace. They're experiencing calmness. So the idea is, if we could support those souls without necessarily expecting any outcome, that they are going to eventually recognize the Brahma Kumaris or recognize our role, but purely as souls who have a pure intention of solving a problem, but are probably not approaching the problem at its root, or not probably looking at the right problem, but they're making an honest effort. And some of them have spent their lifetimes doing it. And they are surrounded with several stressors and so much that's troubling their mind. And our intention is to just give them peace of mind, is to just give them that space for them to think clearly. Maybe the solutions that they come up with eventually will be more sustainable. Maybe long run, they will eventually turn to spirituality as a solution. But I'm not expecting that necessarily as an outcome. But I think the recognition that a support was provided to them when they needed it is going to be imperishable. I think that soul will remember that irrespective of their part in the cycle. I think that's going to be very powerful when I am not necessarily having an expectation that they'll eventually do X, Y, Z for us. But I think that recognition that when they needed help, when they were looking for, so when they were trying to solve the problems of the world, somebody was solving their problems. That will be deeply imprinted on that soul, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Beautifully put.
So thank you so much for joining this morning, brother. Well, it's not morning there in India, is it? But
it's afternoon, 12:30 in the afternoon.
I'm sure you have lots to get on with. So thank you for your inspirations, and really wonderful to meet you. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm actually humbled to be in amidst all of you. I'm sure I've shared just a small portion of it. All of you know much more, and looking forward to hearing from you and learning from you in future again. Thank you. Om Shanti.